The 2023 draft will be full of intriguing prospects and players with awesome stories. One of the most controversial players really isn't that controversial. The subject of today's video was a superstar for the Michigan Wolverines, is currently projected as a second-round pick in this year's draft, and unfortunately will bring a little bit of controversy to his name. In today's video though, I want to talk about his actual story, go through why he should not have a bad reputation, talk about his high school and college career, and why this guy could be a stud at the next level. But before we get started, be sure to leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and let me know what draft prospect I could cover next. Now, let's get started. Unfortunately, that one little mistake is seemingly going to haunt his name, but there's a lot more to his story, and the subject of today's video is Michigan defensive tackle Mazi Smith. But in order to understand the controversy and why this guy could be such a high draft pick, we first need to go back in time. Mazi grew up breathing big-time Michigan football, as his cousins both played for Michigan State, and his mom went to Michigan Dearborn. They grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Mazi was always a little bit bigger than the other kids his age, and he loved football. From a young age, Mazi was very wise and knew the meaning of life. He said, quote, "I come from humble beginnings in the sport of football and in life. After a while, you start to realize that money can't buy anything. It can't buy happiness, loyalty, or friendship. People think it can, but really, it's empty. When I look at life, I want to be full, personally." He also wanted his life to be full of football, and it was. At 16 years old, Smith was seen as one of the top 10 defensive tackle prospects in the country and gained offers from schools such as Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, amongst others. And this was definitely weird for a 16-year-old, and he had a lot on his shoulders. After canceling a visit to Penn State in favor of Michigan, the recruiting world went up in a firestorm, and many thought he was a Wolverine lock. But he said it meant nothing. He said, quote, "It wasn't me picking Michigan over Penn State. It's hard to rule anybody out. Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State, Oregon, those are the schools I've been talking to the most right now." If anything, Mazi was nowhere near being able to make a decision. He never knew where he wanted to go. After he visited Notre Dame, he wanted to go there. After a trip his freshman year to Michigan State with his mom, he wanted to go there. His heart also wanted to go to Michigan. No matter what, it was going to be tough to get Mazi to commit anywhere. Michigan, though, was in pretty terrific shape, with him being in-state, and the bond he had with their offensive line coach Madison, who played for U of M and the Baltimore Ravens. He said, quote, "Coach Madison has always been recruiting me and has always seen my potential. He's the main guy I talk to. Whenever I get up there to Ann Arbor, I also talk to Coach Harbaugh, and he's texted me and my mom." At 16, Mazi could squat 415 pounds and bench 370 pounds. He modeled his game after two other big-time names, and he said he wanted to combine the quickness of Rashawn Gary and the aggression of Ndamukong Suh. He said quickness off the ball is one of my strengths and also my size, and he loved to throw his weight around. Despite being an interior tackle, he could make a lot of tackles and noise on the field, which was sort of uncommon for a prospect as big as him. His high school coach said, quote, "You don't see too many defensive linemen get 9 tackles in a game. That's just crazy, and it was against a really, really good football team." What's also not talked about is he was teammates with one of the top offensive lineman prospects in the country, Logan Brown. He was a 5-star who played on the opposite side of the ball and eventually went on to play for Wisconsin. Mazi, though, would end up choosing a different Big Ten school as he would commit to the Michigan Wolverines. He said, quote, "It was the toughest thing I've ever done, but the trust I have in this program has outweighed any doubt that I'll have about them. I am comfortable and will stand firm in my decision to be a part of this program." That same exact day, Michigan got 2 more big recruiting wins as they got tight end Eric All and 5-star running back Zach Charbonnet. Michigan made perfect sense for Mazi, and with their NFL track record, that appealed to him. His head coach knew his future would not just be on Saturdays, but also on Sundays, so that would help. He said, quote, "He could be a Sunday guy in the NFL. I don't say that about a lot of players, but if Mazi Smith puts in the work, he can be playing on Sundays." Scouts agreed, as according to 24/7 Sports, Smith was a 4-star recruit, the number 11 defensive tackle, and the 105th best player in the class of 2019. So, how would he end up doing at Michigan? Going into Michigan, he would end up redshirting during the 2019 season before he'd see a little bit of action in 2020. He'd finish the 2020 season with 3 total tackles, appearing against both Wisconsin and Penn State. Unfortunately, Michigan had a pretty bad year in 2020, but Mazi would be a part of the rebuild and the revamp of the program, which started on defense. Going into the 2021 season, Mazi would start to emerge around him, and everyone looked up to him. One player on the team said, quote, You want to be like Mazi. They'd watch him and see his technique, passion, and strength, and you can't help but get motivated. He was always known as one of the most serious players on the team, who was always lifting everybody up and doing anything he could for anyone to make the team better. 2021 would be a terrific season for him, as he became one of the better interior linemen in the Big Ten. He would start nearly every game during the season and would help them get to the college football playoff. In their loss against Georgia, he had 2 tackles, making his season stat line finish with 37 tackles and 3 pass deflections. Because of that, he was seen as one of the better linemen going into 2022, and if he could follow up on that, he could find himself going to the NFL. Going into the 2022 season, he was put on Bruce Feldman's Freaks list. Smith benched 22 reps of 325 pounds, closed grip benched 550 pounds, had a 44-inch vertical, a 9-foot broad jump, and clocked a shuttle time of 4.41 seconds, which would have tied any defensive tackle at the 2022 Combine. The guy was going to go insane, and that is what he would end up doing in 2022. He finished the regular season with 46 tackles and 1 sack. He got his first career sack against Colorado State, and then had another one against Michigan State. Michigan ended up having plenty of success in 2022, as he'd follow in the footsteps of Aiden Hutchinson and become a very disruptive lineman. They go to the college football playoff, where they would be matched up with number 3 TCU. The Wolverines were trailing by 11 in the second half, and when they needed him the most, he made a play. He ripped the ball from a TCU running back, scooped it up, and landed on it. Unfortunately for Michigan fans, TCU would end up winning that game. He had a very successful season. He was the first team All-Big Ten selection with 49 tackles. Except you probably don't know much about that, because that's not the main headline associated with his name. On October 7th, 2022, his life would change as he was pulled over. He faced a felony charge for carrying a concealed weapon without a license as he was pulled over during a traffic stop in Ann Arbor. He eventually pleaded down to a misdemeanor, but everyone was constantly talking about him and a gun. He said he was days away from legally obtaining a license when he was pulled over. He said, quote, "I had my certificate and I meant to turn it in a couple days before I got pulled over. I had to reschedule for Wednesday the week after, so I was like 4 days away from turning in my certificate. Unfortunately, it was bad timing, but he'd end up getting a warning. He was sentenced January 12th, and under the Holmes Youthful Trainee Act, the incident would be wiped away if he completed his probation and community service and stayed out of trouble. Basically, it'll end up being a warning, but when you hear the name Mazi Smith, you just think about him getting in trouble. That reputation might follow him over to the NFL, but honestly, they should overlook that part and look at what he's done on the football field. In 30 games, he finished with 88 tackles, 6 TFLs, and half a sack, while being one of the most productive linemen in the country. Currently, I've seen Smith as a late first rounder, a second rounder, and even a third rounder. But, as we all know, sometimes scouts are worried about character concerns, and that one little incident could come back to bite him. This past season, Michigan had the best scoring and run defense for most of it, and his role at nose tackle set him apart from a lot of other prospects. He constantly ate up double teams, had incredible block destruction, and was always seemingly in the right spot. He was the anchor of that defense, the captain, and one of the best players in the country. So right now, Mazi has the size, the physical traits, and the stats to be a productive NFL player, and it seems like he has the mentality behind the scenes. I think he could be one of the most underrated draft prospects in the country, but I actually wanted to highlight his real story, put him in a positive light, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Some would say he's the most controversial Michigan draft prospect, but I don't think there's much controversy to his name. Before you go, be sure to leave a like if you want to support today's video. Let me know your thoughts on Mazi Smith and all the Michigan draft prospects, and let me know what prospect I should cover next. Also, don't forget to subscribe and check out all of the videos on the end screen, including my video about Lucas Van Ness. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.